So we're going to get this started. Good evening and welcome. I am Bill Brown. I am the Director of Congregational Vitality for the Baltimore-Washington and Peninsula Delaware Episcopal area of the United Methodist Church. And tonight I am joined by District Superintendent Elmer Davis of the Upper Shore District of the Peninsula Delaware Conference. And I am joined by District Superintendent Johnsie Cogman, the district superintendent of the Two Rivers District in the Baltimore-Washington Conference, and we are here tonight to discuss the staff parish relations committees and its roles, and we'll get into that momentarily. But first, I'd like us to begin with a word of prayer. So if you all would pray with me, please. Holy and gracious God, we do give you thanks that although we are finding ourselves in separate locations tonight, you have united us. And you have united us through more than just technology. You have united us through the power of your Holy Spirit. For wherever two or three are gathered in your name, you are present. So we are gathering in your name, O God. And we know you're present. So I pray for your Spirit to be upon those of us who are gathered, upon D.S. Cogman and D.S. Davis as they present tonight. Open our ears so that we can hear this important word that they have about this needed ministry in the life of the church. We ask this all in the name of Jesus. Amen. So a few things as we get started. First, I'm going to open up the chat. If you would go to your chat and you can select everyone and just tell us who you are and where you are zooming in from, participating from, calling in from, however you're coming, just let us know where you're coming in from. As you all are doing that, I would also say if you have questions, please use the Q&A feature and we'll get to as many questions as we can at the end, provided we have time. Also, there'll be a couple of opportunities during tonight's webinar where there will be some audience participation and our presenters will offer a question or ask for a statement, and you can put that in the chat and we'll read out some of those this evening. And I am just seeing when you have so far 235 people who are participating in tonight's webinar, they are coming from all over the state of Maryland and the state of Delaware and the state of West Virginia and the District of Columbia. So it is wonderful to welcome everyone. Wonderful to welcome you, D.S. Davis and D.S. Cogman, and I will turn it over to you and monitor everything else.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Brown. Good evening, everyone. I am Johnsie Cogman of the Two Rivers District, and I'm here with my colleague.
I'm Reverend Elmer Davis, and I have the pleasure of serving the Upper Shore District in the Peninsula Delaware Conference.
Amen. So we're here tonight to talk about staff pastor parish relations, and we're going to share our screen so that you will be able to see. In just a moment, let's make sure that we are up and running. Okay. There we are. So we are working together. We are working together, but we want to see who's in the room or who's on the Zoom. So if this is your first time on the SPRC or the Unified Board, please type the word first in the chat. That gives us an idea of how many people this is your first time serving in this role on the SPRC or the Unified Board. Then, no matter how long you've been,
Dr. Cogman, give them a minute. We got a lot of first-time people who are chiming in.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
All right, I'll continue with your next question.
Okay, so now the next question is, no matter how long you've been serving, if you're using a unified board model, we want you to type the word unified in the chat, because the unified board is one of the models of administration. And some churches use the traditional model and some churches use the unified board. So we want to see how many people are on the unified board model. That means that you will understand when we talk about the executive session of the unified board, that is the SPRC of that.
We have quite a few people who are using the unified board model, and I know that's something you champion, Dr. Cogman, so I know that must thrill you. So it looks like it's about half and half. Some are just switching to the unified board in 2026, and we have a couple of people who they're putting in both, that they are both unified and the first time. So it's
Okay.
wonderful. So continue, carry on.
Wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. So here's what we will be discussing tonight. We'll be discussing the organization of the SPRC that comes from the Book of Discipline, paragraph 258.2. So I do hope that you have your Book of Discipline and you can look at that. We're going to be talking about the duties and responsibilities. What's required to be on the SPRC, the evaluation process, the point of appointments, pastoral compensation guideline, your calendar for the year, conflict resolution, and when to call the district superintendent. So that will be our guiding forces for this evening. So I will begin with the SPRC organization, and then I will turn it over to my colleague. So what is the SPRC, or Executive Session of the Unified Board? Who can be a member? How many members should we have? And how often do they meet? So, what is the SPRC? According to the Book of Discipline, paragraph 258.2, it is the committee that is the administrative unit in the local church where a staff pastor or congregation interests are integrated to focus on the mission of the church. The mission of the church. And in the unified board, this is called the executive session of the board. So let me stop right there, that when you have an executive session, you have to close your general meeting. It is still confidential, just like the SPRC, and you convene an executive session of the unified board, which would be the same as the SPRC. Now, who can be members? Dr. Davis, who can be a member?
Between 5 and 9 are elected professing members of the local church or charge or associate members, plus conference lay member and lay leaders. One elected member shall be possibly a young adult. One elected member may be a youth. All must be professing members, and no staff member or member of the family. And not more than one person from any household. So I just want to elaborate on that. When they talk about when we talk about households, only one person from the immediate family residing in the same household shall serve on the committee. Immediate family would include your spouse, your grandparents, your children, your grandchildren, your mother-in-law, father-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, daughter-in-law, and first cousins and your siblings. So I wanted to make sure that we give you a list of individuals who fit that criteria that could not be participants in this committee.
Very good. So now that we have our members, how often should they meet?
They should meet at least quarterly, and with written minutes, recorded decisions, not conversations. The pastor shall be present unless they excuse themselves, and only with the knowledge of the pastor and the district superintendent. They can meet and shall meet in a closed session. Confidentiality is crucial. You're going to find out through this whole presentation. We're going to stress and confidentiality because it's important, especially when you start dealing with health issues and employment issues of the employees of the church.
So I want to foot stomp what my colleague just said, is that you cannot have an executive session or an SPRC meeting without the pastor present or the knowledge of the pastor and the DS. Thank you so very much. So let's talk a moment about the duties of the committee. According to paragraph 258.2G, these are just a few of the things. One, you want to promote unity in the church or the churches. Unity, because we're all about the mission. You're going to confer and counsel with the pastor, advising the pastor of ministry conditions. We will provide evaluation at least annually. That's a requirement of the SPRC, and continually interpret to people the nature and function of ministry. We will also counsel the pastor on relationships with the congregation, priorities, skills, and goals, and interpret to the congregation United Methodist open itinerancy and preparation for ordained ministry. Now, when you look at the book of discipline, there are a whole lot more. So those are just a few of the things that are duties of the SPRC.
Yes. And the role of the SPRC is making disciples for Jesus Christ, spiritually disciplines, listening to your pastor and staff and to the congregation, holding intention the pastor's understanding and the congregation's expectations. I think that's vital and crucial that the accountability is on both sides. Advocating for the pastor while holding the pastor and the congregation accountable, and doing this over and over again, so that we continually do this, that we get a better understanding of our role and responsibility as the SPRC.
Very good. Very good. So now what are some required skills of the SPRC?
Some of the required skills: confidentiality is a must. Issues are discussed during the meeting, not between the meetings, not parking lot meetings. All matters under discussion are kept in strict confidence and in a safe place. All input to the meetings is held in confidence, but is owned input. Um, uh, Careful reporting to the church. um, some of the other responsibilities are to maintain a healthy growth in personal and spiritual life. Make sure you engage in biblical and theological reflections about the mission of the church and biblical leadership, because confidentiality is crucial. I know some of you have heard it, that I've heard it through the grapevine, and sometimes I've seen where we would make an appointment, and before we would get out of the building, somebody else heard it through the grapevine, and that's why confidentiality is crucial. This committee communicates openly and regularly with the pastor, and making sure that the strategies and goals are met, and most of the information, or all of the information from this committee, is held in confidence. Confidentiality is the key. It is a must. Lack of confidentiality could possibly get someone removed off of this committee.
Yes, it can. And for the executive session of the Unified Board, make sure that you close your initial SPRC meeting, and anyone that was there that does not need to be there, there to leave, and then you convene the executive session, which again is a closed meeting, just like the SPRC. Thank you. So now let me talk a little bit about the evaluation process. The evaluation process. The Book of Discipline, paragraph 350 states, evaluation is a continuous process for formation and servant ministry, excuse me, and servant leadership that must take place in a spirit of understanding and acceptance. Evaluation serves as a process for clergy to assess the effectiveness in ministry and to discern God's call to continued ordained ministry. So the evaluation process is very, very important. Now, what do we not do at a pastor's evaluation? There are
Yeah.
no congregational meetings regarding the pastor's performance. We do not pass out the pastor's performance review to people outside of the SPRC, and there should be no surprise overall needs improvement at the end of the evaluation. So we want to make sure that we do things correctly and in order to take care of the pastor and the congregation. Now, what types of evaluations are we going to have? We have a pastor self-evaluation and appointment advisory, and the pastor does a self-evaluation of pastoral effectiveness. And then you have the pastoral ministry evaluation, which is the SPRC advisory. It examines the effectiveness of the congregation in achieving its missions. And both of these evaluations are due this month in November. So please, pastors, make sure that you submit your self-evaluation, and all SPRC members, make sure that you meet with the pastor before you submit the evaluation. Therefore, there will be no surprises. Make sure that you meet together before you put it in our system. Okay. Moving right along, Dr. Davis is going to talk to us about the point of appointments, and then we will talk about the actual form.
So the point of appointments is a process in which we take uh, seriously, especially when it comes to the purpose of the appointments, because God's mission is to love, save our world, and resulted in the most profound missional appointments in history. God sent Jesus not to take care of an institution, but to proclaim his life, death, and resurrection of good news for all people of the world that redeems the primary point and the purpose of appointments. So we appoint the purpose of appointments. We look at all we look at the Wesleyan heritage, set apart ministry, itinerant clergy, vital congregations, full and part-time service, and under the purpose of appointments. All of this information is, if you would click the link, that link will take you directly to the document that has that information on it. But we do take seriously the process in what we call the point of appointments, and it's very significant.
And I will put that link in the chat for people to be able to click on it for you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
The second one is the principles of appointment. Along with the mission, the purpose of the mission described, the following major principles undergird the appointment making process. Number one is prayer. This is God's process, not ours. Therefore, the whole process is filled with prayer through which we seek God's will together. And whatever part you play in the process, you are asked to be in prayer concerning the appointment. So during the whole appointment process, the principles of appointment, we are in prayer. We're in consultation. We talk about open itinerancy, the length of the appointment, and the strategy. The Baltimore-Washington and Peninsula Delaware Conference strategy in our appointment process. And we do look at our book of discipline as a part of the principles of appointment. And then we come to the process of appointment. And the process of appointment, in a short definition of appointment process, is under the guidance of the Holy Spirit in consultation with the pastor congregation to send the person who can do the work where it needs to be done. We, as the cabinet, have a lot of discussions around the process of appointment, and a lot of prayer is going into this, and it includes the SPRC and the information that we come together with to look at our appointments. And so we have a process that we have to go through, and we have to gather data and information that we can have a clear conversation at the table with transparency, that the information is provided, that all of us can have a conversation regarding appointments and discussions. I want you to know that the Baltimore-Washington Peninsula Delaware Conference, we as district superintendents sit at all of these meetings. We have conversations across our area. So we're always together. We know each other well. We've spent time together, and we discuss this information, looking to make sure that we meet the needs of our congregation.
Amen. Amen. This document, as Bill Brown said he's going to put in the chat, can be found on the website. And we encourage all SPRC members to download that document, look it over, and even make sure that your congregation knows how the process of appointments are made. Very good. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions, so we want to make sure that you have as much resources and documents that you can give to the congregation when appointments are being made. Thank you, Dr. Davis. So now we're going to talk about pastoral compensation. This is another requirement of the SPRC. The pastoral compensation, of course, has already been set for a minimum compensation. So this figure is recommended by the SPRC based upon whether it is a pastor that has a church that has a parsonage or not. So there is a cash salary, and then there's an amount for the parsonage, or there is a cash salary or a housing allowance if there is no parsonage, excuse me, or there's a cash salary and a parsonage. That comes recommended by the SPRC or the Unified Board. Then it goes through finance. So if you have the traditional model, it goes from SPRC to finance. And if you're at the Unified Board, you'll go from being the executive session to the finance. After the finance looks at the budget and says yes, then it goes through the administrative council or the Unified Board for a vote before the annual church conference. And many of us have just gone through our church conferences. And of course, that is one of the major things that we vote on, which is a pastoral compensation. Once the administrative council or the Unified Board does it, have their vote before the annual church conference, then it goes to the church conference for all of the church members to vote. And that sets the appointment compensation for the upcoming year. So that's how a pastoral compensation is accomplished. Now, Dr. Davis, let's take this and walk it very carefully through our yearly schedule so that they will know what we're going to do. You take the first quarter.
Okay, so the first quarter in the year is January through March. That's when you organize the committee, train new members of the committee, review job descriptions for other lay and clergy and staff, look at the goals and meeting dates for the year. And in the month of January, we need to make sure that those individuals are installed. I'm a firm believer also that when you give the position description to individuals, I suggest that you have them sign for it because somebody could be in this position for a while doing the wrong things. I believe people don't get it until they get it. So every year you hand them a copy of their position description and have them sign it.
That's right. Very good. And make sure that you are looking at the goals that you all have set with the pastor as you begin the year. Thank you. So second quarter, after you do that, that's when we begin the evaluation of the ministry area. Notice we said the ministry area. And then we do a parsonage review. And this is not optional. Okay, this is disciplinary that we need. If there is a parsonage, we have to review the parsonage. And it is the church's property and the pastor's home. So we want the trustees and the members to keep the parsonage up just like you would keep your own home. So we do the evaluation, the parsonage review, and there is a checklist. There is a parsonage checklist that is available for each and every trustee or members who want to know how it is that we're supposed to keep the parsonage up to par. That is done in the second quarter.
Yes, and we just have to remember to be a good steward of what God has provided to the pastor.
Amen. Amen. Okay, we're rounding out our third quarter now.
July through September is budget work. We start to look at the salary, accounts, reimbursements, the travel to make sure it's in line to continuing education or any other budget items that relate to the paid staff. Interview and recommend candidates for ordained ministry and missional services, and review and update the safe sanctuary forms for church conference. This here is an opportunity for you to evaluate your own process and make sure that the budget is where it needs to be for where you're going and what direction you're going in as it looks when you look at the growth of your church or how things are flowing. So, and you want to make sure this aspect is in line that we can be prepared for the budget season.
And in the unified board, it's the same situation. You want to make sure that between July and September, you designate a meeting time just for budget work to make sure that the budget work is completed and it is ready. Good, thank you. All right, so now we're coming to the fourth quarter, which is where we are now. We will be doing the annual pastoral evaluation and the appointment advisory. And we just gave you the rule of thumb. Make sure that the SPRC or the Unified Board meets first, does the evaluation, then you meet with the pastor before you submit the evaluation. And of course, simultaneously, the pastor will be doing his or her pastoral self evaluation. So that is very important as it deals with the effectiveness of not only the pastor, but the effectiveness of the congregation meeting the mission of the church. The other thing that we do in the fourth quarter is the annual congregation evaluation and the congregational profile. This is another document that the SPRC is responsible for completing. And this is not something you send to the congregation, but as SPRC, you should have a relationship with the congregation to be able to talk about the strengths of the congregation, the weaknesses of the congregation, what they have done well. If they're getting a new pastor, what are some expectations that they have of the pastor? All of that goes in the congregational profile. Number three, doing this year is you review the church's goal for the coming year. So we've done this year. We now start looking at goals for the next year. And this is where you'll be meeting with the pastor, assessing the goals for this year. What do we do well? What do we not do well? How can we do it better? And then what goals are we going to roll over or not do at all? And do we start new goals for the next year? We also will determine the impact on staff priorities, training, and division of tasks. We review an extended range of plan for the pastor and the staff's continuing education. We want to make sure that the staff, as well as the pastor, does have continuing education. And then we will do an evaluation of our past year. How did we do well as a team? The executive session as well as the SPRC. We need to evaluate how did we do well this year? What we do great? What can we improve on? What are the shining stars? Oh, wow. Dr. Davis, do we have to deal with conflict resolution? Is that one of our responsibilities?
Yes, you know, if you're in this on this committee, there may come a time that you have to deal with conflict resolution, and it's how we handle the conflict to get the appropriate resolution. We have to be careful of the us versus them mentality. We're all working together in the life of the church, and anything that we do, we should make sure we bathe it in prayer. Prayer is essential in the beginning. Prayer is essential as we meet, and prayer is essential even at the end. So there may be some conflict, and just know that conflict will come. But we serve a true and living God that will make a way out of no way. And you just have to
Amen. And
trust
Dr.
and
Davis,
believe.
I'm quite sure you will explain. There is a biblical
Yes.
process for conflict resolution.
Yes. Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17, and this is the message version. If a fellow believer hurts you, go and tell him or her, work it out between the two of you. If he or she listens, you have made a friend. If he or she won't listen, take one or two others along so the presence of witnesses will keep things honest and try again. If he or she will still won't listen, tell the church. If he or she won't listen to the church, you have to start over from scratch, confront him or her with the need for repentance, and to offer again God's forgiving love.
So I have to start again if I don't get my way, Dr. Davis. Is that what you're saying?
You have to start again.
And part of the SPRC is to make sure that when conflict does arise in the congregation or amongst the staff, we employ the biblical process so that we can have harmonious working together. So Matthew 18:15 through 17, make sure that you have that in your back pocket, SPRC and executive sessions, so that you will be able to assist. Okay, let's move on. And I'm sure we're going to have some questions there. So let's talk about, when should we call the DS, Dr. Davis?
The chair of the SPRC has direct access to the district superintendent. When you have an issue that you are having difficulties resolving, you make sure you give the district superintendent a call. When you have a question about the process, or when you have a question, you should call the district superintendent. And then you should call the district superintendent immediately if there are any allegations of what is sexual abuse, misconduct, child abuse, or other chargeable offense. From paragraph 2702, or if you have questions that you need answered by the district superintendent, it is vital and important to make sure that you make the call, that at least the district superintendent is aware of the information, because if you do not call the district superintendent, rest assured, somebody else will probably be calling them. In some areas, you could sneeze in one area, and then the other person could say, God bless you, 400 miles away, and will know information. No secrets, no subversions. We need to keep everything transparent, keep everything on the table, that we can deal with those issues that arise in the life of the church.
Amen. Amen. So I really want to footnote what he said earlier. The chair of SPRC, you have direct access to the district superintendent. So do not suffer in silence. We are here to support you. So who are the DSs? Who are you going to call if you have an issue? It's a great picture of our cabinet together, our last cabinet meeting. We were in our pink out shirts. So all of your DSs are here, and we stand ready, willing, and able to support you, SPRC members and executive session members, unified board members, and congregation members. We're here to support you 100%. And last but not least, we also want to thank our servant Episcopal leader, Bishop Latrell Miller Easterling, for her support and all the things that she has done for our area, as well as globally. We're really excited about the great things that we're doing. So
So,
we're now
so
going. Go
if
ahead.
you could do me a favor, if you
Uh-huh.
could go back to the last slide.
Sure.
If you know who your DS is, could you put their name in the chat? I'm just checking to see
That would be good.
if you know who your DS is, if you know what district you're in. How about that? If you know your district and you know your district superintendent, please write the district and the name of your district superintendent.
All right, they're
Oh,
going
that's good.
in. We've got Canal, John. We've got Tom Passmore, John Wonderlick, Dr. Cogman, Lake District, Dr. Davis, Sarah Harbor, Eleazar, Tidal Basin, Two Rivers, Two Rivers. Someone must know you because it's just Cogman. Elmer Neil Davis.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Your whole name.
yeah, my
The
government name.
Reverend Eleazar Valentina Castellon, Tidal Basin. I think we've got a good number of people who know their district.
Yeah.
Very good. That's real important to know. All right. Although we are conference superintendents, we are assigned to a district. So know who you're going to call. All right. So now we can go into Dr. Brown. We have a few questions, correct?
We have more than a few. So if you want to, first of all,
So I'm going to stop
see-
sharing, but I do want to leave this up for a moment, and you can put that in the chat. If you need to email Dr. Davis or myself, those are our emails or addresses. Mine is jcogman@bwcumc.org, and Dr. Davis is pen-del.org. Excuse me, pen-del.org. So now we are ready to field questions, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
All right.
So our participants are some of the most curious people you will meet. And so I'm going to work through, I'm going to give you some of the easy ones first.
Okay.
Um, Someone's asking how do, and I'm going to rephrase it a little bit because I think it's more leaning towards perhaps you might have some suggestions for how they can learn the cultural congregational norms or their desires so they can relay those to the pastor. So what's the best way to find out from the congregation their norms, their culture, their desires so that the SPRC can tell the pastor?
You want me to start with that one?
I'll
So
Start with
start
that.
and
I would say the first thing we're talking about here is relationship building.
yeah.
Relationship. The SPRC or the executive session of the Unified Board needs to get to know the relationship. I had a couple of churches, as a matter of fact, one actually said it at a church conference that even the board did not know them, did not know each other first. So once you get to know each other, developing a relationship will be good. I would also say communication, effective communication would also be good. Having a new pastor coming on board within the last month, we developed what was called listening sessions. So, listening sessions will be an excellent opportunity where congregation members can come in small groups of 8 to 10, no more than 12, and they can just listen to each other. And the pastor can listen as well as the SPRC. It is not a gripe session. It is not, we don't like this. It's not, well, the last pastor did that. It's to find out what it is that the congregation feels they need to focus on and how they can move together rhythmically to make more disciples.
And
Second that.
what's the best means to communicate those expectations to the pastor then?
With the SPRC, when they have, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Davis.
Yeah, when they have their SPRC meetings, they can make sure that information is conveyed to the pastor that he or she can get a clear understanding of what is going on in the congregation, and also if there are any meetings that are happening in the church, the members of the committee can attend some of the meetings and interact, and the fellowship aspect of it, that you can get a clear understanding, so it's not the SPRC dealing with one thing or believing one thing and the church in a whole different perspective. We just want to be on one accord. And I think interaction and communication are the key components to getting that done.
Before we get to questions, I'm going to say to our participants, several of you are putting your questions in the chat, and I won't be reading questions that are in the chat. So please use the Q&A because those get scrolled by very quickly in the chat. So please use the Q&A if you have a question. Speaking about some membership issues on the SPRC, does it if the church is using a traditional style of committee organization and there's a church council, does the church council chair typically sit on the SPRC?
Yes, the church council chair can sit on the SPRC. Is that a requirement? No, but they can.
Okay, and I think that is good for you say non-requirement because they follow that up with if that is the case. I was ready for you to say no, but if that is the case, or since that is the case, what if they're now you have two members from the same family, one who was on SPRC, one who's the church council, what do they do in that situation?
Great question. So our book says that you cannot have two members that sit on the same thing. So if there is an SPRC meeting, one of the family members must not attend. And whoever they choose at the beginning of the year, that person has to stay off the whole year. So here's a good example. If there's a husband and wife team or two sisters that live together, at the very beginning in January, we would determine, John, you're not going on, or Jane, you're not going to be on. And so whenever there is an SPRC meeting or an executive session of the Unified Board, whoever was deemed not to attend will not attend that entire year.
So you can't move them back and forth. It needs to be.
Can't move it back and forth. Even if something happens that you can't go the next time, that means you just won't have any representation, but you cannot move it back and forth. No.
And would it be fair to help the decision making so that there's not maybe marital arguments? Would it help that the person who was actually elected to the SPRC be the one who would attend if that's who the church conference had elected? to
Yes.
serve on SPRC? Okay.
Yes.
You know, I'm all about keeping the family peace.
Yes, we are keeping the family together, and that's why we try not to have husband and wives on the
Well, that too. How do you deal with, or can, what are your suggestions for dealing with SPRC members who discuss SPRC information with their spouses or girlfriends or boyfriends
who are not on the
who are
board.
not on the
Oh,
SPRC?
that's easy. What did we say, Dr. Davis? You are gone. If you
Well,
bring confidence, go ahead, Dr. Davis.
here's the thing too, and so the individuals on the committee need to understand that the confidentiality is really with them, and they have to be very careful and true to the process, not to reveal any information, because the person they reveal information to is not held under the same accountability that they are. And so if it's found out, then I think, it needs to be discussed, because that could be very problematic. And this is why we keep talking about confidentiality, because once again, people heard it through the grapevine, and you have to be careful. Confidentiality is for everyone, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. You have to hold true to the process that you are part of on this committee.
And people are bringing up other issues of discussing with people perhaps from other churches or family members and friends from other churches. So let me make sure I hear you correctly. Say nothing if you are an SPRC to anyone outside of your local church SPRC. If you do, you have violated confidentiality. Am I
Yes.
understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yes,
And from what I hear you saying, if a member of SPRC violates confidentiality, they should be asked to leave that committee.
yes,
Okay, thank you. Let's keep it simple.
yes.
Um, in terms of, let's stick on the membership of the committee for a minute, and particularly with your knowledge, Dr. Cogman of the Unified Board, and we could also say Church Council. So this is for either. Is it advisable if we know by book of discipline two members from the same family should not be serving together, may not serve together in the SPRC, regardless of whether they live together, if they are related in any way, shape, or form, they can't serve. What about a husband and wife couple just on a unified board or church council serving together? Is that advisable?
It's the same concept. It's not advisable. However, we know that we have some churches that are very small membership, and they do have a husband and wife serving. And if that is the case, it is still the same situation. One or the other can only serve on the SPRC or the executive session. We advise them not to do it, but if they happen to do it, then whoever chooses, you cannot do it.
Now I'm not calling out anybody in our participating audience tonight, but we're getting caught in the weeds. What
Okay.
if someone is family but not by blood, like an adopted child? Can they serve on SPRs? If you are related by blood or marriage or adoption or in-laws, just
No,
no. Okay,
no,
is that safe?
no.
Just no.
Just say no. No. Let's keep the integrity of the SPRC the way it should be.
And remind me again, DS Davis, what's the minimum number of people that can make up an SPRC?
Minimum number is 5.
It's five. So you could find five unrelated people, even in some of the smaller churches, who
Yes.
could serve as SPRC. Okay. I just want to give people all of the options. So let's go back to the top of my page. Um, Someone's wondering why the due date for evaluations was moved earlier this year.
It was, well, if I may answer, it was moved earlier due to the decrease of the number of districts and increase of the number of churches that the district superintendents have. We read every evaluation. So when we went from 60 to 70 to 90 to 100, we needed more time.
Okay. So we're extending some grace to our district superintendents to be able to read all of them. And I want to point that out because the number one thing I hear from a number of church people that I work with is, does anybody read the reports we send in? And I know I read a lot of reports, and I know my colleagues on the cabinet read every evaluation. So I think.
So you need to know also that not only do the DS read some of these reports, the bishop is reading the reports also. So we have to make sure that there are certain reports that we have to upload to the bishop, and the bishop will be reading those reports because sometimes we get to the cabinet meeting and we find out information that we did not know. And so therefore asking this year that that information is put in those forms so when we get that we can have a more constructive meeting because this information is available to us, and a part of that the bishop will be reading portions of information that will be beneficial in the appointment process also.
Now, speaking of on the role of confidentiality, we have a couple of questions regarding minutes. And if minutes are to be kept confidential, can they be emailed to attendees? And how do you archive minutes if they are to be held in confidence? And I know you said it, DS Davis, but I think it bears worth repeating. What do you note in the minutes to maintain confidentiality?
Yeah, you have to be careful what you note in those minutes to maintain the confidentiality. And in this technological world, I'd be real careful about emailing a lot of things. I suggest that you warehouse them in Pendel. We warehouse them the old-fashioned way. We put them in a file, and we leave them there in a locked file. And I think that's the way that you should make sure that those minutes do not get disseminated to people who do not need them.
And if you're, I think as you said, DS Davis, that in those minutes you're not um, chronicling the details of the conversation, just the outcome of the proceeding. So how were if the vote was for A, did people vote for A or B? But not what the conversation was around that. And that helps also to keep the confidentiality. Um, where can someone find the church profile that has to be completed?
The congregational profile
Congregational profile. Where would they find that so they can complete it?
in the Baltimore-Washington Conference is in Arena.
So
And
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 for the
you know,
Peninsula Delaware Conference.
it's right on our webpage.
So wherever you find church conference reports from wherever your annual conference, you will find the profile report. So I know Peninsula Delaware, I'm on that website all the time, and it's very detailed, and it is in many places with Baltimore-Washington as well. So um, thank you. See, I'm giving you some of the easy ones. Let's get to some of the hard ones. For evaluations, is the pastor present in the SPRC meeting when they are preparing the pastoral evaluation?
The initial pastoral evaluation?
When
Is
they
that
do
what?
the yearly evaluation, when the SPRC sits down to do the yearly evaluation, is the pastor present in that meeting?
No, not at the initial. At the initial, the SPRC meets together, they do the evaluation, then they have a meeting with the pastor. So the pastor is not present for the initial evaluation.
But they still need to make the pastor aware that they are meeting to do the
Oh,
evaluation.
definitely so. Yes, yes, yes. So the pastor will be aware of the meeting, that we're meeting for the purpose of the evaluation. That's why we said the pastor has to have knowledge, the pastor or the district superintendent. They meet independently of the pastor, then they meet with the pastor.
And in terms of the pastor's self-evaluation, does the SPRC have access to read that to see if they're on the same page? Do they get to view the self-evaluations, or is that just something between the local church pastor and their district superintendent eyes?
So the way that I would answer this is the self-evaluation is the self-evaluation by the pastor. If the pastor chooses to have dialogue with the SPRC as to what they put, they do that, but that is not a requirement for us. What about you, Dr. Davis?
No, it's not a requirement. So
I'm catching up on some of these things. I like to thank people. So, and so I'm going to just be preemptive. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but people can also find the congregation evaluation form in the same place that they find their church conference forms, depending on their annual conference. Same place they can find their profile form.
Mhm.
Do we have a due date, however, for that report, the congregational evaluation?
Yes.
Do we know what that due date is that you could share?
Yes. It will for Baltimore-Washington Conference, it's before December 1st.
Before December 1st, and do we know for Peninsula Delaware Conference?
we just recently November the 1st.
So you just turned yours in. Okay. I will, and I'm gonna, I get to answer this
I'm
next.
sorry. I
Oh,
apologize. Thank you, Dr. Davis, for reminding me. No, it's November for the Baltimore-Washington Conference. It's November the 15th. Let me look at the date. It's November the 15th,
so
not
next week.
December 1st. Yes, yes,
Next
November
week.
the
Okay.
15th. It was changed. Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Um,
So for Baltimore-Washington Conference, let me be very clear. It's November 15th.
okay. Just just a lot more questions. Let me go down to the bottom. So those who get when there is a pastoral introduction, a new pastor is being introduced to the SPRC for the first time, is it a requirement for the district superintendent to come to each church for those?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
part of the take-in.
yeah.
And the DS must be there. The DS introduces that. That's part of the point of the appointments. Yes.
I knew that. I just think they needed to hear it from the two of you.
Yes.
How about guidelines for determining the pastor's compensation? I know each annual conference sets the minimum compensation. I know each annual conference has years of service increases, but are there any other guidelines for determining when and how to give a raise, or are there other ways to compensate a pastor that may not be um, salary related?
I'm not quite understanding the
I,
question.
I would say that that is within the local church, and that's with the conversation with the church to make those assessments. Have our minimum requirement, but those other requirements are not in our purview.
Right. Thank you.
So minimum requirements people have to do. The others, that has to be a conversation that is best left at the local church. Um, okay, thank you. That's very good advice.
Mhm.
Um, we'll jump back to the top for a second. Ah, Here's who uploads the pastor's compensation report to Arena or sends it into Pendel for church conference. Is that the SPRC's responsibility or someone else's?
That is the SPRC's responsibility.
And a lot of the evaluation guidelines that the two of you presented this evening, um, again, very helpful. But how does that work when the appointment just began July 1st? And now, come November, they have to evaluate somebody who's been in the position for less than 6 months.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's a good question, but go ahead. I'll follow up. You go ahead.
So every pastor is appointed every year, July 1st. And even if it is a brand new pastor, there will have been goals that were set when you had the take in and the new pastor workshop. So there should be some form of evaluation, at least one of the goals. We do not expect a whole year's worth because the cabinet did know that we just appointed that pastor. So with the deadline now being November the 15th, we're looking between July and November 14th or November 1st to see, have you had dialogue? How did you meet at least one of the goals that was set? Where are we going from there? So we understand that we will not get a year's worth, but we should have something.
And based on the initial conversation with the SPRC, there should have been establishment of a covenant and you want to make sure that they're living up to what was established in their initial meetings regarding the role and responsibility of the pastor, what the church would like, visiting the sick and shut in, Bible study, and things of that nature. If those have been met, those are evaluative tools that could be evaluated in the first 6 months of the pastoral ministry.
All right, I'm going to try to get through. I'll tell you, I'm not going to make you answer this, but somebody's asking, so I'm going to offer it, and you can, if there is a take-in and the district superintendent is bringing a new pastor in, does the SPRC have the ability to decline the appointment if they don't think it'd be a good fit?
Yes, they do. In section 3 of the point of appointment, it clearly says, and you will get this, the point of appointments before we do the take-in. If at any time that the SPRC during the deliberation time feels that this is not a good appointment for missional reasons, then the district superintendent is to stop the appointment process and call the bishop.
And they have to articulate the missional reason. They have to reduce it to writing, the missional reasons that they have. And once they reduce it to writing, it doesn't automatically mean that the pastor will not be the pastor of the church. It's no automatic guarantee just because they don't want them. They have to reduce it to writing, and we will review it, and the bishop will make a determination from there.
Thank you. Can you give a brief definition or summary or example of the difference between the pastor's goals and the SPRC's goals and the congregation's goals? So when you had discussed that there should be goal setting, so are the goals for the pastor the same as the goals for the overall congregation? Are they the same that the SPRC sets? How do we determine that?
I would say yes and no.
Good answer.
They are individualized for the pastor because some of them may be educational things, some new educational resources that they're trying to develop themselves. And yes, because the congregational and they have the same goals moving the church forward. So yes and no, depending on uh,
And
what
I
they're
would
doing.
also, I
Yes.
agree 100% with Dr. Davis. And I would also add that during the new pastor's workshop, there is an exercise that we give them where they rank order the expectations of the pastor, which will help them in establishing the goals.
Yeah.
I'm going
And
to say something briefly about that because I designed the exercise. And if people have not seen it, in the Book of Discipline are roughly 3 to 4 pages of expectations for pastors that no one person could possibly ever achieve every year on their own. And that's why it's a good exercise to begin to rank them. I'm going to go back to the end. Um, Some of the question I'm going to just say to people, some people are still asking questions in the chat, so please put them in the Q&A. Some of these questions are so specific to your local church about a particular pastor or particular pastors you've had that I'm going to ask you to reach out directly to your own district superintendent and discuss some of these particular specific questions that you're asking. Some of them are just um, not appropriate to be shared for the broader audience. Here's an interesting one on the evaluation, page 5. There are questions about the pastor's own spiritual growth, or are they how the pastor promotes congregational spiritual growth?
Was that a question or a statement? Say it
That's the
again.
question. Is when the question on the evaluation is asking about spiritual growth, is it asking about the pastor's personal spiritual growth or how they are promoting spiritual growth within the congregation?
It would be the pastor's spiritual growth for that
Thank you.
one.
Do you all ever give feedback about what you all thought about the evaluation to an SPRC? Someone's asking that question. Do DSs give feedback to the SPRCs?
Do we give feedback to the SPRCs?
So the SPRC turns in their evaluation to the pastor. You've read it.
Mhm.
Do you ever go back to an SPRC and say, I read your evaluation, this is what we think, or
So
Um,
go ahead, Dr. Davis. I'll let you go
I would
first.
say in situations where we need clarity, yes. I mean, because
okay.
some things may not be as clear cut, and there needs to be some clarity in how you got where you are in your evaluation and what information that you utilize. So yes, in those situations, for clarity, I have asked, how did you get there, and get some little more clarity, where some people think that the little bit of space they have, they can't use an additional piece of paper to give further explanation. Then I have to ask to make sure that I'm understanding it with clarity.
Yeah, I agree with him 100%. And as I said earlier, if there is an overall needs improvement or if there's an overwhelming amount of needs improvement, then I will be calling the SPRC.
So it depends on the content of the evaluation, whether it is not clear or whether it is a challenging evaluation and needs just some further clarification. Um, do you all have any lessons learned or best practices on conflict resol you use the term resolution. I've used the term transformation, but on dealing with conflict, do you have any best practices or lessons that the two of you have learned in dealing with it? Because I also know that every once in a while, district superintendents are called in to deal with some conflict.
So for me, I use the biblical model first, as we just explained. And then if I find that that is not working, then we provide additional resources for the conflict resolution. As you know, we do have a great conflict resolution team, and we utilize as much outside sources to help the inside as we can.
Do you have anything to add to that, DS Davis?
I would just say, stay in prayer and be be mindful of what you say and how you say it in
Mhm.
situations
Yeah.
that
Okay.
you don't create more of a problem than the problem appears to be.
We have a couple of questions about the pastor being present during the evaluation process. The first question is, what if the pastor refuses to leave the evaluation while they while they are filling out the original?
Well, I would hope that that is I would hope that that would not happen because the pastors do understand. And I would say to the SPRC chair, as you saw on the next to the last slide, that you have direct access to the DS. And if they refuse to leave, I would encourage the SPRC chair to give the DS a call.
Couple of questions. How often are the past people are asking about updating the pastor's evaluation form, not the pastor's specific evaluation, just the form that is being used. Some people have asked for a satisfactory versus some of the polar opposites that are used. Some people are asking for a shortened version for new pastors. A lot of good suggestions, but do you know how often do we evaluate the evaluation in terms of what needs to be asked?
Let me make sure I'm hearing that. You want to know how often do we evaluate the actual evaluation form?
Correct. To
I
take suggestions from people who are actually filling it out.
Oh,
I
well,
think we take suggestions all the time
yeah,
because
right.
every form needs to be
Evaluate.
evaluated and can be maybe written in a whole different perspective that we could get more succinct answers in our questioning. So we always talk about the evaluation. We always talk about forms
Mhm.
Yes.
in our United Methodist conference. So
Yes, we do.
And I will add, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, people will often offer, whether you have solicited or not, their suggestions, and they are taken into consideration.
Right.
yes,
Yes, they
Um,
are.
I'll answer this question because it's been asked a lot. So for everybody who has asked, we are recording tonight's session. It will be posted either later this week or at the beginning of next week to every website that we are a part of. So we have a Pendel website, we have a BWC website, and we have an Episcopal area website. Trading Tuesday is posted there, and we will also put a copy of the slide deck because a number of you wish to use it for training the SPRC members who could not be here tonight. Um, Someone's asking about, you had mentioned a confidentiality covenant. Does the pastor sign the covenant of confidentiality as well?
Yes.
In terms of the unified board, who determines who serves on the unified board? Can the pastor just appoint people, or what is the process that is used for membership onto the unified board?
It is the same process as it is for the council and others. It goes to the nominations committee, of which the pastor is the chair.
And we'll just keep going with pastor on committees. And someone's asking about does the pastor automatically serve on the SPRC?
Yes. But
Yeah.
I guess when we're saying serve, I mean just being a member, or we're talking about voting member?
The question verbatim
Yeah.
is, does the pastor automatically serve on
Yeah.
SPRC?
That's why I said yes. Staff, pastor, parish relation. Yes.
Yes. And again, those are interchangeable words. The pastor parish relations committee, the staff parish relations committee, that depends on the number of paid staff you have in your church.
so Bill, I'm going to make a correction because on some places on our Pendel website, the form is due November the 1st, but then on another spot in our Pendel website, it's November the 15th. So just want to make that clarity for the church profiles to be turned in.
Oh, good. Somebody asked a question and then realized that it wasn't relevant. How often typically do DSs visit a church beyond the intake? Someone's asking, is there a required number of times you're supposed to visit a church as a district superintendent?
Well,
Ah,
no. When you have over 100 churches, makes it most difficult to visit all your churches. So I would say no, but uh, as a district superintendent, I have visited numerous churches.
and I agree. I tell the people all the time, there's 92 of you and one of me, and there's only 52 Sundays. So there are going to be some Sundays that I will get a chance to go. If your church is at 9, and then I can swing over and get on 11 o'clock, that's fine. But then there are times that I may not visit on a Sunday, but you may have um, a Wednesday dinner. You know, you may have dinner church, or you may have an event on a Friday. So yes, we do try to come and visit every church whenever we can, but at least once a year.
All right, I'm gonna get through. So we've been throwing around. I'm just curious. Someone's curious about it. We've been throwing around titles of district superintendent or conference superintendent. Um, So are you referred to as a conference superintendent who is assigned to a district? Or are you a district superintendent? Inquiring minds are asking. So we can
What does Bishop tell us? We are what? Conference
conference
superintendent.
superintendents assigned
Conference
to a district.
assigned to a district.
Um, for so there's the pre-evaluation meeting you discuss where the SPRC is working on the evaluation while the pastor is not in the room. Then the pastor comes in and the evaluation is discussed. Is that with the entire committee or just between the chair and the pastor?
Entire committee. The entire SPRC committee and the entire unified board. It is not with just the SPRC chair, no.
And as in terms of the protocol that you described for the evaluation, should that protocol be used with the conversations around the pastor's salary compensation? That the pastor not be present during the conversations around salary recommendations?
Again, I guess I'm making sure we're talking about the initial when they come together to talk about the initial.
When the SPRC gets together to discuss setting the pastor's compensation prior to charge conference, should the pastor be in the room for that conversation?
I would, okay, so again, maybe I'm for the initial one when they're discussing the finances throughout the year, the pastor would have known about the finances of the church. So it should not be a surprise if there is a conversation about the compensation, if it needs to be lowered or raised. So I believe the SPRC, as I said earlier, should have the opportunity to come together to have discussion, to look at the finances, look at the evaluation, and then have a conversation with the pastor. So I believe they should have that time initially together and then bringing the pastor in.
Thank you. Is the SPR, so let's move away from the pastor for a second. Are there any guidelines for evaluating other church staff, like a music director or a youth director or anything along those lines?
Oh, definitely. So that's part of the SPRC's job. I don't mean to be hogging it, Dr. Davis, please.
So you go ahead. I mean, yeah, I
But
mean,
the SPRC's job is to have a contract. And so within that contract, it should be talking about a 90-day or 6-month evaluation because you should have a contract and a job description. So the job description should be what the requirements are, and that's kind of like, what you're evaluating them on. And then the contract talks about the payment schedule and the evaluation at that time. So yes.
so the SPRC should be working on a job description for any employee in the life of the church. And so therefore, if there's any raises or anything, they're based on those evaluational tools that they've established uh, with the employee, with the expectation. So it's their role and their responsibility to provide that information.
And s staying with this, with the responsibility for other staff, is the SPRC the committee that is solely responsible for hiring staff, such as the position descriptions, as I'd say yes, you just mentioned that, advertising, interviewing, background checks, I-9s, is that all fall under the purview of the staff parish relations?
Yes.
And I would add, just from my own best practices, they can also assign that work to a smaller subcommittee and bring in. I always brought in an HR professional that was in the congregation to help with hiring, just to make sure they weren't on SPRC, but we brought them in, member of the congregation, just to make sure we were following all of the correct applicable state and local laws.
Yeah, and make sure
Yes.
that the questions that were asked are fair across the
Yeah.
board
Yes.
to all of the individuals being interviewed.
So yes, there should be like an interviewing team. Thank you, Dr. Davis. You're right. An interviewing team.
And who supervises the staff beyond the pastor?
It depends on which position they're being hired for. And that will be part of the job description as to who they will report to.
And I think that's a good point because there are some churches that the SPRC determines that the pastor will supervise staff as part of their job. There's other churches that if there is a music director and an organist, the music director may supervise the organist. But I think what I hear you saying is make sure that is all laid out in writing ahead of time. So,
Yes.
and
Another good example of that, in addition to the music ministry, that's the first thing I thought of. But you also have the cleaning services or the janitorial services. Yes, they are hired, but they should also have collaboration with the trustees who have to maintain the building. So yes.
yes,
Mhm.
I'm just reading. Uh, Back to the introductory meeting for a new pastor.
Okay.
They're just trying to get some clarity on the normal process. Um, so I'm going to just read it, and then if I have to clarify it, I'll do my best at interpreting tongues. Is it one meeting where the DS both shares that a pastor has been found and the SPRC meets the pastor all in the one meeting, or is it two meetings, one to hear about the pastor who's been found, then the SPRC makes a decision based on what you were saying, DS Conference Superintendent Davis, about whether they would accept, or is there a secondary meeting? So how many meetings usually?
It depends. First and foremost, we want to meet and make sure that the compensation is still able to be maintained by the church. We also want to get some input from the SPRC on what who they would, in a perfect world, who they would like to have as their pastor, what characteristics that they're looking for. And we may have to come back, 2 or 3 times. It depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on the issues that are before us at the time of appointment. But we do have our own work that needs to be done
Beforehand.
even prior to take in. So it could be several meetings before that.
Right. I agree on that end. There are several meetings beforehand. However, to answer, I think, Dr. Brown, what you just said was when the pastor has been appointed by the bishop, then at the take-in, that's just one meeting.
Right. The take in is,
But
yeah.
but previously, what Dr. Davis said is correct. There are several meetings that we're going to have beforehand, before the appointment has been made. But once the appointment has been made, there's one meeting for that. And that's all laid out in the point of appointments. It's an 8-page document.
And our appointments, our take-ins, we have the information all laid out. We do the take-ins in the same manner across Baltimore-Washington, Peninsula, Delaware
So we're just jumping around down to back to church profiles. If they turned it in at their church conference, do they still need to upload it by November 15th?
I think that's for you, Dr.
Yeah,
Cogman.
it should. So they would not have turned in a congregational profile. You said at the church conference?
Somebody says the church profile was turned in at church conference and it is uploaded already to Arena. Does it have to be sent again?
No, it should have been uploaded in Arena. It's
They said
not
they
turned. I'm sorry.
that's what they meant. If they've already uploaded it to Arena as part of their church conference,
Right.
do they have to
Then
upload it separately?
no, because it's not turned in at the church conference. We don't receive the congregational profile because that's not something that is voted on. So we do review that in the Arena. So all the DSs look at the congregational profile. So you don't need to do it twice.
Okay. One final question. Um, a lot of the other questions are variations of things you've already answered. So if you did not hear your particular question answered, that's because it was answered as part of uh, within the answers to other questions, but this one hasn't. Is there a reference in the Book of Discipline about the pastor not being present at the pre-evaluation meeting? Because this is the first time they're hearing this information. And some of it may be, again, while you're looking, some of it may be just best practices. Well, she's looking, I'll ask you a question, Reverend Davis. Is there a quorum needed for each SPRC meeting?
Those who show up is
Those who show up constitute a quorum. So there is no
okay.
minimum number you need to have a meeting. That's the quorum. While she's still looking, I'll give you a couple of other easy ones, Reverend Davis. The congregational evaluation, can that be shared with the entire congregation?
Of the pastor?
No, of the the SPRC does a evaluation of the congregation. Can the congregation evaluation be shared?
I think that if there's a congregational evaluation, the members of the congregation already know the information that is inputted in the evaluation. So, yes, because they gave the information for the evaluation.
Okay. You still looking,
So
Reverend?
so the evaluation is Book of Discipline, paragraph 350. And it says for clergy serving, and this is 350.1, serving the local church, the DS, district superintendent, in consultation with the SPRC, will evaluate annually each clergy effectiveness for ministry using criteria, processes, and trainings developed by the cabinet and the board of ordained ministry. It says the clergy and local churches shall participate annually in an evaluation with the committee on SPRC to enhance ongoing effective ministry and to identify continuing education process. It does not say that they should be there on the initial or they should not be. So it does not, it just says the process shall include self-assessment and whatever. So it doesn't say that that they must be there, and it doesn't say that they cannot be there. We were
But some
just
best practices.
right. We were just saying the best practices is that have the SPRC to come together to go over the evaluation and then bring the pastor in.
Okay. Well, that is all the time we have for questions because I've got some wrap up stuff. I'm gonna just applaud you both because this is a very important topic. It is a challenging topic, so I'm gonna let you, while I'm doing my closeout, I'm opening up the chat. If everyone could please drop in the chat a thank you to Dr. Cogman and Dr. Davis for their work tonight, because this is critical to the work of the church, but it's also a challenge within local churches, and you all have handled questions that you did not know were coming very well. So thank you all so very much. Just a couple of announcements. Next week, you may have seen that we were going to have a webinar on nominations, but due to some issues beyond our control, we've had to postpone the leadership development and nomination webinar until the spring. So I'm giving everybody next Wednesday off. And on November 18th will be a webinar for the local church trustees dealing with local church insurance trends and best practices. And then on November 25th will be a training Tuesday for the local church finance committees on local church finance updates. Particularly as we're closing out the year, people will get some information about the trends in our conference budgets and updates that we're seeing in local church statistical data, and then some details about the new Compass Clergy Pension Plan and the billing that will take place for that. So it's going to be an important Training Tuesday for church finance updates. And it's not on the website yet. You're hearing it first tonight. Scoop, our December 2nd Training Tuesday will be on everyone's favorite topic, statistical reports. So that is December 2nd, statistical reports. That information will be going, registration should be going live later this week. So please keep your eye out for that. So that is all the time we have for tonight. Again, thank you all very much for participating, for your great questions, for your thank yous that are still coming in from our participants. And I just want to thank you both for taking the time to prepare for tonight and to be with us tonight. I hope everyone has a blessed evening, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Good night.